So I was watching the Sae Bae video where he was like ranking all the different skills, and I was getting a little bit upset. I'm not gonna lie. He, I, I won't go into it, but I think he just definitely like butchered the entire thing. So I want to give my tier list, my objectively true tier list of all the skills. So first of all, agility. I think agility is A tier. I think agility as it is now is really cool. I think Sepulcher is some of the best content in the game. I think back in the day, it used to be super cool with like Dorgishgon or I guess Werewolf. I don't know, like Brimhaven, super cool. I think the addition of, or at least the saturation of rooftops nowadays is very sad. I think Artie Course is ridiculously overpowered and is also getting a buff. So I think that kind of tanks this a little bit. Like it could be S tier, but the rooftops definitely put me off. Like Sears agility is just like so fast. I mean, if they remove like Sears and Artie, I think maybe I would think this is a little bit better of a skill. But right now it's an A. And right now I'm just gonna combine all of the melees into one. Like it has like attack, strength, defense. To me, there's literally no difference. So this is just my melees section. I think melees are D tier. I think they're pretty uninteresting. Like I don't know. I just don't think it's a very like fun or interesting training. Like I mean, you just like boss or kill things. Like I don't know. I don't find it super interesting, so I'm putting it in D tier. And like I guess I'll also do the other combats. So ranged, I is the same thing. Honestly, I think it's D tier. It's not super interesting. You just shoot things. I don't know. The other combat though is magic, and I think magic, like combat wise, is very much the same. However, like all the utilities, like different teleports or like the zero time training of it, like the multi skilling of alking during mining, or like back in the day when people used to like magic imbue during mining or fishing and stuff. I think all this like utility that magic has definitely makes it more interesting. So I'll put it in C tier for now. I think it's closer to B tier than D tier, but it's in C. Same. So I'm not touching attack, defense, or hit points. It's not very interesting. I guess I'll also hit Slayer because that's also a combat. I think Slayer is F tier. I think Slayer, just like as like skill design itself, I think Slayer is poorly designed and implemented. It's just it doesn't feel like it should be a skill in my opinion. And yeah, I put it in F tier. I think some Slayer tasks are actually kind of fun to train, especially like on an Iron Man, like making sure you have all your melees and your ranged and magic XP versus like herb seeds and prayer XP. I think that's kind of interesting, but that's not really like that's not like the skill. I think the skill itself is very uninteresting, and I don't like having to switch what I'm doing and like go to different like tasks, and like it's like skill hopping basically just within one skill. Like I don't like that. So it's F tier for me. Next, I will put construction. I think construction is a pretty cool skill. I think construction should be like B tier before the left click. If you don't know, there was a recent change where construction was made left click only, or I mean left clickable. Like you could just click your mouse once, and shout out Wizard. If you know if you know you know, but he found a method with mahogany levers. It's like 720,000 XP per hour. All you have to do is just hold down your one key and left click once every tick. You don't have to move your mouse whatsoever. You don't have to press any other option. And it just basically makes the skill AFK. Not like AFK, but like zero brain power, just clicking once every tick. And I think that really, really sucks for the skill. I mean, for skilling in general, but for the skill specifically, I think it definitely could be up here. Like back in the day, if you ever saw like Link's Titan on his 200 mil construction grind, where he's selecting each option with his mouse instead of the number keys, I think that was super cool. And then we strayed away from that, and we used like the number keys for different options, which kind of ruined it a tiny bit for me. But then it came back with like I think making benches is super cool content because it's like actually super difficult to like get good rates with benches. If you've ever done them, you have to like move your mouse. And now, I mean, it's just so easy nowadays with left click. You don't have to worry about like right clicking and having your mouse in the correct position. It's just like left click only. See, I'm putting construction as C tier for now. It used to be A or B, but it's in C tier. I do like Mahogany Homes. I think Mahogany Homes is decent content. Like I think the design of Mahogany Homes is pretty cool. There's like going to other people's houses and making things in their house. I think that's cool. I think it's maybe a little bit overpowered, like how much XP you get per plank, but I mean, there's no reason to do it pretty much on any account. But yeah, I'm moving on. I think okay, we'll go cooking next. I think cooking is pretty cool. I think cooking is very I don't want to say like nostalgic skill, but it's a very interesting skill where you can one tick karambwans or you can fire buan if you know what that is. I think it's cool. If you ever know like what eerie fishing is, we I like that too. So I'll put cooking in C tier. I think it's cool. I think it's not like one of the best skills. I think it's somewhat boring if you're just like AFKing or whatever, but it's definitely not a bad skill. Crafting, however, I think crafting belongs in F tier. I think it's a pretty uninteresting skill. Like, I mean, you could multi skill it with like blowing glass at ZMI if you're an Iron Man, but I mean, the skill itself is pretty uninteresting. It's just bank standing, and it's just I don't know. I just don't like it. I think it's not a very interesting skill, so I'm putting that in F tier. Farming, okay. Sae Bae had farming in F tier, which I think is criminal. I think farming is a pretty awesome skill. If you're an Iron Man, maybe it's not as fun, having to do a bunch of chores, but I think farming as a whole is definitely. I'll put it B tier. I think farming is cool, having to go to different patches. Like, I think Tithe Farm is kind of cool as well. I mean, it's a little bit like weird and maybe shouldn't exist in the game, but it's a fun mini game, I think. So I'm definitely putting it in B tier. Let's see, fire making. I okay. Sebe also put this in F tier. I think fire making is also B tier. I think Winter Todd should not exist, and if it, I mean, it does exist. I think it should be a lot slower of an XP rate as it is now. But I also think Winter Todd's kind of interesting content, like kind of fun in a way, in a very weird way, I guess. So I I also think that like GE fire making, fire bronze, fire bronze, superheat, all these different multi skill options is definitely cool, and I definitely think that's a very interesting skilling method. But I mean, it's not like it's not like crazy cool, so I'm just putting in B tier for now. I'm gonna skip over fishing for now. Fletching, I think fletching also belongs in F tier. I mean, the ability to like multi-skill fletching like darts during like pretty much any method is kind of cool. Like if you're done like granite and darts, like it's very intensive and fun. But it's also just like not very interesting skill either. Like I mean, bank standing fletching is one of the most boring things in the world. Making arrows is also pretty boring. Nothing too interesting with that. So it goes in F tier for me. Herblore, I'll put Herblore in D tier. I think if you're like strictly thinking about Iron Man, it's kind of cool, like making your own potions and stacking a bunch of cool stacks of herbs. Like I get that. I think that's cool. But in the general, like in the way that people train Herblore is just 14-14 at a bank clicking. It's not very interesting. I think the ability to multi-skill Fletch or multi-skill Herbler with like Sepulcher with like the one tickable potions or thieving, I know some people do. I think that's cool. I think that definitely takes some skill, but besides that though, it's not a very interesting skill, especially if we're talking Herb Todd that's been pulled. I mean, that's not coming in the game yet, so I'm not gonna like bring that against the skill, but I mean, Herb Todd is just one of the silliest things that's gonna come into the game. But I won't go into that. Next, okay, I'll tackle mining. I know a lot of people think that I love mining, and I do love mining. Mining is my favorite skill. I think mining granite at least is my favorite method in the entire game. It's the only skill I've ever gotten to 200 mil. It's amazing. But I think mining belongs in C tier. I think the way that this game has progressed and like not devalued, like changed mining. Like, I mean, come on. What are shooting stars? Why is that in the game? Why is everything AFKable? Why is mining AFKable like eight different methods? Like, I mean, you have like Camdozol, which is I guess more free to play based. You got like shooting stars, which is basically how most people train mining in general, which I think is so sad. I think the inclusion of Motherlode Mine back in the day was horrible, and I think the inclusion of the prayer Motherlode Mine that's in Varlamore is also pretty bad. But I've never done that like for a long period of time, so I guess I can't really speak on that. But in general, mining is one of the methods or one of the skills that has like changed so much. It's such an awesome skill if you only have methods like granite or like interesting methods like power mining iron. I think that's so cool. But then you have methods like volcanic mine where you're just AFKing mining. Like what? Why? Like this skill just like loses all of its value to me when you just AFK it, like sitting at a shooting star for 10 hours a day for a month, and you're like, boom, there's 99 done. Okay, you've not really even played the game. You're just AFKing stars. I think it's terrible skill design, and Jagex, or I guess even the community itself, has just like, in a way, like ruined mining. And I would love to put it somewhere like S tier, but it doesn't go S tier. Okay, what's next? Prayer. I think prayer belongs B tier. I think prayer is super cool to train like at an altar specifically. Like if you're like have a gilded altar, you're like one ticking your bones. I think that's super cool. I think chaos altar also has like a type of finesse around it to like make it worth doing and not super risky. So I definitely like that. I also think, I mean, maybe this is a little bit biased, but the way that you train prayer in like a free to play account is so cool. If you're free to play iron, you train boneyard, which is by far like, okay, it's like top five methods in my opinion. But if you're like a regular account, you can multi skill it like 40 mil prayer during your fire making grind, or different ways to scatter ashes or use the ash spell if you're a man or if you're pay to play. I think that's cool. I think there's definitely a lot more interesting content with it, and it also takes some skill to like efficiently train. Like yeah, you can just AFK at a gilded altar and it's whatever, but I think there is like some finesse to this skill, and I definitely like it. Okay, thieving. This is a weird icon for thieving, but thieving, I'm gonna put at D tier. I think thieving's pretty uninteresting. I think pyramid plunder is kind of a cool method and kind of I don't know. It's fun. I think just spam clicking and not paying attention to your screen with like Artie Knights or whatever the Sorcerer's Garden is called, squirking. I think that's what they called it, squirking. I think that's stupid, but I mean there are some interesting methods like artifacts is super cool and fun to train. So it's not F tier, but it's also just not super interesting, so it's D tier. Smithing, I want to put smithing like A tier, but I'm gonna put it B tier for now. I think blast furnace is one of the coolest methods in the game. Like blast furnace gold, or if you're an Iron Man, like hopping at blast furnace shop, like going between the different blast furnace worlds, like double hopping, smithing them while buying. I think that's so fun. And I mean, even just like making regular bars, like adamant bars, like it's so fun. And I think that's an awesome method. I also think anvil smith, anvil smithing is also super cool. I think it's definitely been devalued or made less interesting with the addition of Giant's Foundry. I really don't like that method or that mini game in general. And I mean, okay, to a tiny rant, the Smith outfit from Giants Foundry is astronomically more impactful on the skill than other skilling outfits. Like, I mean, Angler outfit is what, like 2.5% XP increase versus Smithing outfit, which makes everything on an anvil one tick faster, which is far more than 2.5%. It's like, I don't know, it's ridiculous how that's in the game and not been changed, but I guess the efficient way to train isn't really using anvils all that much, so it is what it is. I think smithing by itself, like, is a pretty cool skill, so it's B tier. Woodcutting, I want to put woodcutting in A tier. I think I think two tick teaks is like such a like a cool like chill method. That was like one of my first ever like efficient skilling methods. Not like efficient, but like an actual like interesting skilling method that I've done, and it's very fun. I also think 1.5 tick teaks is like such a cool method. Like I love that or that method, but I also think AF King Redwoods. Well, I think AF King Redwoods is way too much XP per hour. I think it should be like a third of what it is now, but I think it's not bad. Like surprisingly, I think AF King Redwoods is kind of okay. Although I mean, yeah, it is fast, but it makes sense. Like you sit at a tree and you would cut it. Like that like in my brain makes sense. And I think that's such a cool skill. The only reason it's not S tier is, I mean, top five worst updates to come in this game is Forestry and Forestry Part 2, and, I mean, bonfires and two handed axes. Like, come on. It's just one of the worst things. So, I mean, it's not S tier, but I'll put it in A tier. Okay, rune crafting. I think rune crafting is S tier. I think back in the day, like solo lavas or double nature rune crafting through the abyss is such a like those are so fun, and like they actually took some skill. There have been like quality of life changes to rune crafting, like left click pouches that I don't exactly love. I think that's pretty bad. I also think well, I think Guardians of the Rift shouldn't exist, but on the other hand, like Guardians of the Rift is kind of a fun mini game, and I like the idea of like going to different altars. So I'm not super mad that Guardians of the Rift exists. I'm happy it's not like meta or anything, but runecrafting itself is a pretty cool skill. I think ZMI is a little bit overpowered, especially for Iron Man. It's definitely overpowered with the remnants of the eye or whatever they're called. I also think, I mean, solo lavas is awesome. I think paying for runners at lavas is fun, although like super expensive, obviously. But the only issues I have with runecrafting are Zaya runecrafting, which is ridiculously bad content, or honestly, I don't know. That's probably the only thing that I have to say like negative about runecrafting. I think free to play runecrafting is super fun too. Like, well, I mean, Earth runes aren't super fun, I guess, but it's a very interesting skill for free to players as well. So the only ones I have left are fishing and hunter, and I wanted to leave these for last because I I don't know. I have interesting things. So Hunter is at least A tier. I think Hunter is an awesome skill. Catching chins is such cool content. Like I love that method, like black chins in the wildy, or like shooting your own chins, or even have like an alt to shoot your chins. I think that's awesome. I think Hunter rumors are overpowered at least. Like I mean, XP rates wise, they're pretty overpowered, especially for Iron Man. Loot wise, they're pretty overpowered. Um, However, I'm not super mad at rumors because they bring you to like the different hunting training methods that used to exist, like I mean kebits or like the deadfall traps or the pitfall traps. I mean, I think that's pretty interesting. Although it's definitely some crazy XP rates nowadays, but I really like this skill. I don't like Herbivore. I don't like Maniacal Monkey AFK. I kind of like birdhouses on an Iron Man, but aside from that, though, I think it's pretty cool. And with fishing, I think fishing would belong in B tier because I mean, things like barb fishing and two-tick swords are awesome. I mean, if you're an Iron Man, you know, you got decant barb lore, just like one of the most fun methods also. And if you're free to play, you have snowfire or Eerie fishing. Shout out Eerie. But I think fishing is also such a cool skill, and you know there are like AFK methods, and I think Temperos is pretty bad for the skill. But overall, I do like fishing. However, with the last two skills, hunter and fishing, with the release of Fossil Island, drift nets have kind of taken these two skills and combined them and made them into one skill of drift nets because that's like the most efficient way to train this skill. These two skills are just to do drift nets if you're a main account. If you're an Iron Man, it's a little bit different because getting those nets is hard. But drift nets kind of ruined both of these skills, and I want to put these both down here, C tier, just because drift nets has really detracted from these skills and taken away from what they actually are and made them into a multi-skilling, not even multi-skilling, it's like an uninteresting method, first of all, that gives you crazy XP rates for these two skills. And yeah, I really just don't like that drift nets exists and takes away from arguably like super fun skills. So besides that though, this is my tier list, and I don't think I'm gonna have any changes to the skills. I think this is pretty accurate with how I think. Maybe I would put agility up here. I don't know, but this is what I think. I think Sae Bae's opinions were ridiculous, and I mean, if he talks about a gnome cube one more time, I'm gonna freak out. But besides that, though, yep, that's my tier list. Leave in the comments like what you think. Like I'm interested to know how. I know my opinion's probably not a very popular opinion, but definitely let me know what you think. And yeah,